Hello and welcome to another video and where I try out 3 different setups that people say aren't allowed or you shouldn't do it. But I'm savage. Number 1. Lots of people say that you shouldn't put an overdrive, boost or distortion pedal in the FX loop. And with FX loop I mean between your preamp and your power amp and not in the FX return. So really in the FX loop. And there's a good reason why people say you should not do it. Because a drive pedal adds volume and distortion and it could easily damage your caps or your ears when you activate it and suddenly there's a huge volume boost. So if you're careful, however, this should work. So let's try it out. I've emulated this setup with my X-Effects and I've chosen a really basic setup with just a Bogren cap IR, the DDR, and the PV5150 block letter emulation. And for drive I used the Maxoff 808, which is a Maxon 808. You can see all the settings and first of all you hear it in front of the amp, as people say that's the way to do it. It's a standard metal sound. You think it's good, you think it's bad, you think it's generic, but it's a sound. So now let's deactivate the drive in front of the amp and put it in the FX loop, which is between the amp and the cap block emulation. I haven't changed anything except for the position of the drive and the settings. You see them right here. And let's find out how this sounds. So it's a lot less aggressive and it's way heavier in terms of, or it's way darker. I prefer the sound with the drive in front of the FX loop, but you can do this, and this has a huge plus if you like the sound. You can basically use the volume control on your drive pedal as an additional volume control, so that for instance you can crank your power amp and then reduce the volume on the FX loop pedal to get the full power amp distortion without sacrificing your hearing. And that's a real cool trick. So with this setup I've already maxed the tone, and remind this is a Maxon 808, so other drive pedals or boost pedals, for instance the TC Electronic preamp or the Pepas 33, might work better, but let's find out if we can tweak this sound by dialing, by playing around with the amp control. So again, I don't like this sound, but lots of guys actually prefer this tone over the other tone, and that's totally fine. Remember, it's okay to do so, just be really careful with your volume controls. Number 2, modulation or time-based effects have to go into the FX loop. I think that's true for time-based effects such as delay or reverb, but for modulation I highly doubt it, and this rule is has only a meaning when we're talking about distorted sound, because when we have a clean sound it actually doesn't really matter if if the pedal is in front of the amp or in the FX loop. So here we have a clean sound, it's Soldano. And now let's activate all of that. First of all, in the FX loop, I have a chorus, a delay, and a reverb. Okay. And now let's activate the exact same settings in front of the amp. I don't really hear much of a difference. But when we switch to a distorted sound, this time it's Soldano, still the lead, but with an added grinder boost, so basically a boost in front of it. First of all, chorus. Chorus in the FX loop sounds like this. It's a really 80ish sound, and to be honest, I don't like this sound. I prefer the chorus in front of the amp because this sounds like this. I think the sound is way beefier, it's not so phasey, and I especially like this with a phaser actually as a lead sound, an additional lead sound for some parts, and Eddie Van Halen did this as well. So next, delay. So delay in the FX loop sounds like this. And this is my go-to solo sound. I always add a delay, and the reason to put it in the FX loop is so that it's not affecting the gain stage, because when we put it in front of the amp, it's basically as if we would play another note, and this will be amplified and distorted as well. So this easily sounds muddy and more or less like double stops, and not as clean and smooth as it did here. But hear for yourself. Way louder, way more aggressive, and for soundscaping and adding layers or creating noise, this is actually really cool. And you see it's possible and it's not damaging everything. So, works, just not for me. And with reverb it's kind of the same. If you put the reverb in the FX loop, basically the distorted sound gets a reverb, and if you put the reverb in front of the amp, your guitar sound gets your DI sound gets reverb, and guitar and reverb are distorted afterwards. and this sounds different. So first of all, in the FX loop. Now in front of the amp. So that's a distorted reverb. The tone gets really muddy. You can't really hear what you're playing when you play fast, and I don't like it, but I can totally see this being used in some more noisier songs or in an interlude or intro, outro, whatever. So one last thing, let's activate everything together. First, for my favorite setting, which would be delay in the FX loop, reverb in the FX loop, and chorus in front of the amp. This sounds like this. And now the total opposite. Kind of messy. I hope you get the idea. And number 3, and as you can see, I've switched instruments. Don't use a bass amp through a guitar rig. And why is that? Well, it's because of the deep frequencies that a 4-string or a 5-string have. And when you use it through a 4x12 cabinet that isn't specifically designed for handling bass frequencies, it might get broken. And therefore you shouldn't do it, some people say. But Lemmy did it. And he was kind of a cool bass player. So, first of all, let's hear a cool bass sound. It's just an SV, Ampeg SVT cap simulation, amp simulation into a 4x10 cap simulation. And this is how it sounds. Standard bass sound. Now let's switch to a guitar amp, and it's a Friedman HBE V3 with EQ as here, and I think I've added, yes, I have added the FAS boost, and the cap is my go-to Bogren DDR, and this is how it sounds. So, first of all, the bass is distorted, of course, but especially for the studio, you basically always want a bass distorted, because then you get this high end the bass needs and the mid-range you want to have, and it's much more pronounced. It basically glues together with the rhythm guitars to one massive wall of sound, and that's what we all want. Of course, in the studio, the amp sound is combined with the bass amp sound or the DI sound to still get this low end that you want to have. So, bass through guitar rig, yes, of course, but just make sure you won't blow your speakers because of bad using it. And there you have it, 3 things that I've often read to be wrong or to not do. And I hope I could prove that everything is possible, and everything has a distinctive sound, and if you want to have this sound, you can get it by doing it. And well, basically I think the bass into guitar amp isn't really this forbidden anymore. But well, I hope you learned some things. Let me know down in the comments if you have some other stuff that you heard people saying are forbidden but that actually work for you, or that you really want to see me try out. Maybe I'll do a part 2 of this format. So, well, I have nothing more to say. If you want to support this channel, check out the links in the description. And for everyone else, thank you for watching. May the force be with you and have a nice day.